You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. In a world where mental health struggles feel overwhelming, what if there were handbooks with real steps to fix anxiety, depression, addiction, and more? Find out the details in today's thought-provoking episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we dive into a practical, no-nonsense approach to mental health. Our guest shares insights from his Fix It Handbook series, offering real, actionable steps to help people take control of their well-being. Instead of simply talking about it, we explore clear strategies designed to create real change in your mental and emotional health. Faust Ruggiero's professional career spans over 40 years of cutting-edge counseling programs focused on professional excellence and personal life enhancement. A published research author, clinical trainer, and therapist, he has worked in diverse settings, including clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, and major corporations. After earning his degree from Mansfield University in 1977, Faust pursued graduate studies in psychology at Illinois State University, contributing to research on children's cognitive responses to television. He later worked with adolescent deaf children, developing behavioral management programs, and provided substance abuse counseling at the Lehigh Valley Alcohol Counseling Center. In 1984, he joined Northampton County Prison, where he provided psychological and substance abuse counseling for inmates. In 1989, Faust became president of the Community Psychological Center, offering services for individuals, families, and specialized groups, including veterans and first responders. He also developed corporate employee assistance programs and was recognized nationally and internationally for his business-focused counseling approaches. In 1994, he became a trainer for the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Faust developed the Process Way of Life counseling program, a method incorporating over 50 internal human processes to help clients navigate life challenges. This approach became the foundation for the Fix Yourself Empowerment series, beginning with the award-winning The Fix Yourself Handbook in 2019. Faust has appeared on national and international media, including television, radio, and podcasts, and launched his own radio show, Fix It with Faust, in 2021. Here is my interview with Faust Ruggiero. Hi, Faust. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because processing a life is such a fascinating topic for our conversation today. And I have a feeling there will be many interesting things for us to chat about. Welcome to the podcast.
Petra, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And do you want to start us off with a little bit about yourself? Maybe where you think your journey started into what you do today, and share with our listeners what it is that you do today.
It's a question I get asked a lot, and my journey started when I was a kid. This is just some of us, the journey kind of picks us, if you will. And I was the kid that loved to hear people talk and was just so enthralled by their stories. And I was the kid that people talked to when they had problems, my friends. So going into psychology and counseling, it was, as we say, a no-brainer. It was just, let's do this, let's continue. So, that was 40 years ago. And here I am today, still doing it. I mean, I'm writing and I'm doing shows and all that type of stuff, but I'm still counseling people. People will say, what's your journey in life? And my journey in life is to be in service of other people. And I thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I always have a feeling that when we get called to do something, sort of as you have been, There always is that piece of the personal journey that connects us to it, like you enjoying listening to other people. So I can definitely see how you ended up doing what you do today. Thanks for sharing that. I'm very curious because I read in some of the notes and in your materials as well that out of this whole journey came a process life program.
Mhm.
And that sounds like it started off many other things that came afterwards and alongside of that. So, what is this process life program and how does that connect to counseling and helping people and what you do?
It's the question that gets everything started, Petra. With me, you go to school, you learn all these things, almost 7 years in college and graduate school and clinical psychology. And here, these are all the ways you work with people. And here's how you diagnose. And that's all great. And I still use a lot of it. However, what I found, as most people do, is that some of the theories maybe don't apply exactly like I'd like them to. As time goes on and people change and the way people process is different, then programs should reflect that. What I saw is that people were dealing with different processes to run their lives and simple things, honesty and how to get your intellect over your emotion, and gratitude and humility and wisdom and all those kinds of things. I had 52 processes I put together, and I realized that without ever formally defining them, I was using them as I was counseling people. They would say something. I'd say, well, you've given me part of the story, but you're protecting part of it. We need to get honest. So a process I call brutal honesty. Let's get down and make it get uncomfortable a bit so we can get to the point that you are comfortable. Everything was built on that, on all these processes. All the books I write all have those processes in them, all have the same design. I'm a defined action person. Define the problem. Let's get all these processes in order. Let's start moving through it. And then let me give you all the action steps, which I do in counseling. I'm one of those dynamic counselors that said, you need to do this. And when you come back next week, we'll talk about that. So you already know what we're dealing with next week. It's not, hi, how was your week? And what would you like to talk about today? That's, in my mind, ridiculous. There's a roadmap. There's always a roadmap. It's information, it's action, always. And the processes are how I get there.
I like the idea of that because I find that very often, especially in talk therapy, and I've said this a few times before on the podcast, I feel like we get stuck and there's this action component missing. So I like the idea of having a roadmap and actually understanding what the action steps are. Now, when you talk about 52 processes, is it equal across different issues that people deal with? For example, if we're talking about physical issues or we're talking about mental or emotional issues, do these processes extend over different kind of challenges that people have? Or do you find that in some there's more processes that duplicate than in other challenges?
Yeah. They're really problem specific. Their primary issues might be they're too emotional. They don't always get to the truth. They seem to have a good life going, but they're not very grateful for what they have. So we're going to assign particular processes to those problems. And the chapters in the book are written that way. They're not just there. The way the books are written is every problem has specific processes on the top, processes to employ, we call it. That's what I do in therapy. We're not going to try to move someone in a direction with a process that they don't really need, that they're doing well with. So we're going to assign the ones that are necessary.
That's really fascinating. And I did read that the Fix Yourself Handbook series, so this is kind of where all the books tied together. There was also one on anxiety, I believe I read.
Absolutely.
Maybe take us through what that would look like if someone is experiencing a lot of anxiety in their life and what could be some of the reasons for that. It could be work or it could be family relationships, finances, there could be many different things. But how would you start someone off walking them through a process and then some action steps, for example, if they're experiencing a lot of anxiety in their life?
Absolutely. I know this is a huge topic for you also. When you get into that, you can get into this simple type of an anxiety. I'm just getting really nervous about things, or they're situational where I have to do public speaking or fly on the airplane. Okay, there's situational things to the more advanced things. You get to the freeze and you're down the road and I can't do anything. You're going to assess where that is on the scale, if you will, 1 to 10, whatever. you're going to say, okay, let's look at how deep this is. Here's what people I think do wrong with anxiety. They go right to the mental part of it. Well, let's see what's causing it. And what I do is, great, you're feeling it in your brain, but it's the body that we have to calm down. So when they come in, I'm going to look at their body first. I'm going to ask them, first of all, did you have a wellness visit with your doctor? Let's get your blood work done. I want to know what's going on there. If you've got a thyroid issue or some other hormonal issue, if I could tell you how many women come in and I say, let's check the hormonal issues. Well, that's ridiculous. I'm in this relationship. I said, then they go back and they come back and the doctor says, yeah, you got a couple hormones that are off. Thyroid's not doing exactly what it should do. And then they take care of that. It might be a medication for the thyroid, where other doctors were going right to antidepressants, which weren't going to do a darn thing because they're not going to touch the hormones. I want to go and get that first. Then I talk about the physical purges, and they all love me when I get to this point because I say, you have anxiety. How much caffeine are you putting in your body a day? And they look and say, well, they give me the same answer all the time. I don't respond to caffeine. I could have a cup of coffee and go right to sleep. It's the standard answer, you know. And I'm saying that doesn't matter if you're putting accelerants in your body just because you don't think it's doing anything. It's an accelerant and you have anxiety. Think about it. We start doing taking the sugars out of the diet. We look at sleep because sleep and anxiety are first cousins. I mean, seriously. When I get into someone who's dealing with anxiety, I'm going physical first. Once we start to get that in order, and that doesn't mean I'm not paying attention to their issues, the bad relationship, the situation at work, I'm validating them there, no doubt about that. In the meantime, we're saying, I'm going to keep working with you on this, but you go to the doctor, and when you come in next week, I want to know that you have that appointment. And don't wait till the hour before you come in next week. And I'm like this. I'm going to call you tonight or text me the moment you get your appointment. If I don't hear from you tonight, I'll call you in the morning. And they just look and, I'm a little more dynamic in the way I counsel. I help people follow through, let's say. They get that done. We move into the other components. Now we're using all the processes. Are you being honest? Are you using some defenses? Are you making excuses for someone? Anxiety and people pleasing are so tight together. Are you doing that? Are you putting yourself in toxic situations because you know them and you know how to operate with them? And then making changes is so intimidating, so you stay there. We're going to look at all those kinds of things and what's playing into the anxiety. So physical, and then we're going to deal with all the real issues. Then I want to see whether they're dealing with them with facts or it's all about emotion. Because you know as well as I do, if I'm reacting to something before I've really taken a good look at it, then I'm really going to have some unhealthy reactions. And then I'm either going to back away or I'm going to aggress or do whatever I do. So then I say, okay, fine, I'm going to show you how to tear all these things apart. There's a process I call I over E, intellect over emotion. And it is not that you can't be emotional, but when you emote, let's emote over real things, over facts. Now we can deal with that. But if you come in and you exaggerated something and you're just all emotion, A, it's irrational. And B, you're probably not going to be able to work because you can't get past your emotions. So I help them slow their bodies down. We maybe do breathing exercises or yoga or prayer or whatever they want to do, exercise, whatever. So we attack the body and the mind at the same time.
I like that. I also love your motivational component. That is amazing.
We got to a point in counseling where it was, let's treat you nice. I don't want to disrupt your world and you're okay. And we pat them on the back and they go and they leave the counseling session and say, I feel so much better. It lasts for the end of the day. And then tomorrow they start again. If you're going to do counseling, there's some work involved. I always tell people it's like exercise. You can say, yeah, I'm going to go do it, but I didn't have time today. Or I went down and did a couple things. Or you can challenge yourself and it gets a little painful. And then you work through that. And then you increase the difficulty and the duration. And now you realize you're challenging yourself. And that's what life should be about. I shouldn't fear change. I need to challenge me. I need to go and be the strong version of me. That's what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually going to ask you about that because a lot of people, they start really excited because all of a sudden there's some action and some solutions, but then that peters out and there isn't really a long-term change. How do you foster that long-term change so people actually stick with some of these things that you work on with them consistently and get that transformation that they were looking for in the beginning, or a resolution or a change in their lives that they actually needed to have? How do you work with them on that?
We talked about processes, but let's just take the S off the end. Process. They have to learn the process of change. We live in a society, and it's just worldwide, where it's quick fixes, instant gratification, medication, it's all those things. We don't get to the cause of it. When you get to the cause, as you know, you need to put the time and the commitment into it. I want them to understand the process of change. How we do that is incremental learning. Just, okay, you're over here, and in 10 steps, you just got to here and you're fixed. Well, see you, and that's great. Have a nice life. Nothing in life works that way. No permanent change is ever quick. And I want them to understand that. But that doesn't mean that, oh my God, it's going to take me 2 years to feel better. What I'm saying is, if you really want to love yourself and believe you're worthy, shouldn't the first order of business every day for you be to take care of you? I wake up every day saying, I want to challenge my day. If there's a couple things I'm not too good at, I'm going to try to work on those. I'm going to keep doing that every day because I want me to keep getting ahead. That's not a chore. That's sort of like, gee, I keep polishing the apple and just it gets shinier and shinier. I want to keep doing that. And then it gets to the point where you say, I really like working on me. I got those things that were holding me back out of the way. And then I realized I'm in a position to move forward. My whole thing is the Fix Yourself Empowerment Series. I want them to be empowered, not just fixed. Okay, you come in, you say, gee, I got this relationship thing. We fixed that. Okay. And you go back and continue on your comfort zones, but your relationship's better. If that's what you think you want to do, that's great, but you're not empowered. Sooner or later, something else is going to come along and you won't have the processes to fix it. And to understand that it's ongoing forever and that you should love that whole process. I get to work on me every day. It doesn't get any better.
Yeah, you're right. It's a lifelong process. And we need to maintain and care for ourselves, love ourselves, and provide all the things to deal with challenging situations, because it's unrealistic to think we will never have any stress or nothing bad will ever happen. So we need to be equipped for that. And I'm curious, and you've been practicing for a long time and you've worked with a lot of people. What are some of the most common challenges that you see on why people are hesitant to start working on themselves or giving themselves that time? What are some of the things that hold them back that you see over and over again on what people struggle with to get started?
The big one is resistance. I don't want to do all that work. And with the advent of the internet, I mean, I was born before all this came into play. So I tell my kids the story of when we were young and in the kitchen, there was a phone on the wall and there were no computers. And if you wanted to contact your friend, you would say to your mother or father, can I use the phone? And if it was my father, he'd say, why? Well, I want to make plans. Okay, you have a minute because you're not going to tie up our one phone. They do everything at the snap of a finger. And the interesting thing is, if I go online, I will come back with this whole big research thing about any topic. They will read the headline and draw a conclusion from it. I resist having to change. I resist doing all the work. Second answer after resistance is entitlement. I'm entitled to have this. Nothing in life ever told us that. We are temporary beings. We die. We're not entitled for anything. I get them past those two things, the resistance and the entitlement, and get to the third thing they need to do, which is commit to change and make it an everyday process. But what stops them? I'm entitled. I don't want to do all the work, and I'm not going to. I'm resisting. No. And they'll question me, do I really have to do that? My customary response is, I'm not asking you to cut off your arm. I'm asking you to do a little work. I don't have the time. And then I say, oh, geez, how much time are you dedicating to television and your cell phone? The average cell phone and television a day minimum is 2 hours, minimum. And I'm being really conservative there. And some of them, it's television and the cell phone on at the same time. It's Facebook, it's Twitter, it's YouTube. And they'll say, no, I don't spend time on. So I'll look at what's really trending. And somewhere in the conversation, I say, I heard about that. Oh, yeah. And then they take off. I say, I thought you weren't doing that. And they look, oh, yeah, you set me up, didn't you? I say, yes, I did set you up. You've got to be honest. You're going to do work. You're going to put some of these selfish pleasures that do nothing in your life aside and do what you need to do to become happy and become powerful and be a person who is able to attack your world.
Yeah. I feel like being honest with ourselves is sometimes just the hardest thing to do to look in the mirror and be very honest about what's happening and what we are actually doing or not doing to move ourselves forward to a change. So, yeah, I like the fact that you dig into that with your clients because I feel with that awareness comes this ability to then make those changes if we're becoming aware of what's actually going on and what we are or aren't doing. So, yeah, that sounds like a big part of that whole change process. Now, what do people come to see you about? Do you notice any patterns? I know that the past few years have been challenging on this planet for many people. I feel like our mental health is being challenged a lot. Physical health is often challenged a lot as well. What are the most common things that people come to see you for? What do they like to work on? What do they want in their lives?
I set myself up and my practice up to be able to do a lot of different things from the education right through all the various places I worked so that I would have reference points and good information for people. Used to be I would get the couples counseling or I'd get the anxiety or the depression. Now, when they come in, they have all of it. That's the difference. When I started, people were still working on themselves. They were still willing to do the work, and things went wrong, or they had a family history of depression or anxiety or substance abuse or whatever it may be. Now they come in and it's everything. And I'm depressed and I'm getting anxiety. And we have across the world now, marijuana is the new savior of the world, which of course is nothing at all more than a drug. That's all it is. It will produce addiction. It will produce withdrawal. It will affect your motivation and your clarity of thought, but it will make you feel better in the moment. And then what you'll do is you'll start using it maybe just for sleep or once a day. And next thing you know, you've got a pen with you. It's across the board because people are unwilling to do the work. So when something comes up, they push it aside. That leads to the next thing. For example, if they're smoking too much pot, well, now work suffers. Well, now maybe you lose your job, and now maybe your relationship suffers, and you've got all these financial bills and the depression and the anxiety. So when they come in, there is this whole plethora of things that we have to work on. That's the change that I see now. It's a multi kind of diagnostic approach today, where before we would look for the one or two things. Now, when they come in, it's five, it's six. The old days, they would present with one, and then we begin to uncover some more where it snowballs a bit. Now it's full blown when they get in. I've got all these things going. Now we talk about do the work, and they put their head back and they say, where do I start? And that's where I say, we're going to start with your body and getting you healthy. We're going to start there. And then we're going to tear all the rest of it aside. Do what I tell you every day. The day that you don't will be 1 week behind. If you do what I tell you to do the next week, and I'm not going to tell you more than you can do. That's my job, to know what you can do. So when I give this to you and I say, do this, go do it. Then you come back, and that's that incremental movement that we're talking about. That's the only way to work with it, because now they're coming in with so much. And when I started counseling, I always say 5-10% of people were on antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. Now it's 65 to 70%. They come in on them already. Once in a while, people would come in smoking pot. Now 30% of them have marijuana cards. I said, do you see what's going on? You're medicating your way through life. It's not good. We need to stop you from doing that. And they'll ask me that. Don't you use any of it? No. Drink? Very, very, very rarely. Do the research. See what it does to your mind and your body. Are you willing to do that? Then you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I feel like A lot of people are looking to cope at this time in our history and in life. They're looking to cope with things, the overwhelm, the struggle, mental, physical, emotional struggle. And those coping mechanisms aren't always conducive to our happiness or our health, be it if we're coping with alcohol or substances or anything else that's not healthy for us. So, in that search of trying to find a coping mechanism, often these things will come along because there's a numbing that happens, right? We can kind of step away from our lives for a bit and be numb to that. And seems to help with the anxiety to not have all of these things floating around in your head. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. And I do feel, just from personal experience, and interesting that you are confirming that through your clinical experience, that people are struggling with so many more things than they used to, and all at the same time. So, not surprising that a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed many times in our lives and trying to find these coping mechanisms. I like the idea of your handbooks as better coping mechanisms so that we can put some processes in place that will actually help us handle life on a much better level and in a much healthier way so that we can tap back into our emotions and we can work with our physical health. We don't have to numb any of that out. We can actually manage it. And when it comes to that overwhelm that a lot of people are feeling and people that you're working with as well, do the handbooks offer the steps forward to kind of pick these things apart and let people know, okay, here are your stepping stones. Here's where we start. You said, let's start with the body and then we go forward. So in different kind of life situations, you have handbooks that will help with that.
You've written a book, and when we write, if we do our homework, we go out and we say, well, what's everyone doing out there? Because I don't want to duplicate. That's certain. I don't want to do that. But then I also want to see, where do I want to fit this in? And what I saw, and I read many of them, and I have to tell them, they all gave great, great information and no advice. Okay, now that you're doing this, exactly do this. I don't know if they don't know what to do or they weren't sure how to put it into a perspective. But when I wrote the books, I said, well, I want these to simulate to some extent a counseling session. I didn't want long drawn out chapters because that's what everyone was doing. So I kept them anywhere from 6 to 8 pages. And the men love that because men don't read as much as women do on these things. We condensed the information in there, and then it goes to what we call time to take action section. And then all the steps in that particular chapter are presented there. For example, the new book I'm writing, I just finished it. It's the Fix Your Internal Language Handbook, how we talk to ourselves. There are 15 chapters of all kinds of information they need about how this self-talk affects us and why we do it and all those kinds. So they're going to see a lot of things that they've never seen before. At the end of every chapter, they're going to be 3, 4, 5, sometimes 7 or 8 action steps. Then the last 10 chapters are the roadmap to fix those, the internal language. 10 chapters of all the steps to take, but in every chapter, there are another half a dozen action steps to do that. And that's what I keep getting people. The thing I get the most is, thank God someone finally said, okay, here's the information. Now do this. I know what to do because not only do they have direction, then they have a measurement device. Are these things working? Or maybe I'm not so sure about this, which is what we do in counseling. That's what I'm doing with these books.
Yeah. I have a feeling that these are extremely helpful and supportive on our journey, whichever piece of the journey we're on. And I love the idea of this language book that you are writing because we have tens of thousands of negative thoughts every single day, right? So this is one of these pieces we can tap into, and I feel we can make a real change in how we talk to ourselves and then how that kind of rattles into our thoughts, our emotions, our physical health, and everything else. So,
And our external behaviors,
exactly.
the persona we bring out to the world. I tell people we think with language. You're in your head all day long. And even when you dream, the daytime, you're talking to yourself. Think about it. Are you always positive? Are you negative? Do you get angry, aggressive? Are you revengeful in your mind? Or are you just depressed? We really need to look at what you're doing in your own head, because if we don't change that, the chances of changing anything else kind of slim.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the handbooks available that people can pick up, I'm guessing, on your website, on Amazon, and they're available to purchase. And can people work with you one on one, or do you offer group programs as well? Or how can people work with you, Faust?
The easiest way, Petra, is just to go to my website. It's my name, faustruggiero.com, and everything about me, all the books, excerpts from the books, everything is there so they can see what we're doing. There's a contact link if they'd like to ask questions or say, gee, I'd like to work with you. It's right there. And whether they want to work with me or just want to ask a question, I do get back to people.
Fantastic. And Faust also has a radio show called Fix It with Faust. And I was listening in. It's really interesting. So you can listen in from healthylife.net radio if you want to catch some of the episodes and hear some of these really interesting insights that Faust was talking about. And of course, we will be linking to all of Faust's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for his website, how you can connect with him, and also how you can get a hold of the books that he has written. I feel like there's topics sprinkled in these handbooks for pretty much every listener that might be listening in today, whether you have anxiety or are struggling with addiction or the one coming out now with the internal language. I feel like there's something for everyone. So check out our show notes and have a look at how you can get a hold of your copy of one of those books. And Foss, I just want to thank you for coming on today and speaking with me. It has been such an interesting episode. I feel like I have learned so much today's episode. It never stops in this lifelong learning process. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me. I hope that what people are hearing does some things to help them move ahead a little bit.
I feel this idea of dynamic therapy is something that will be really, really helpful going forward, maybe especially for people who might be stuck a little bit in talk therapy or might be stuck in their own change cycles. This idea of this dynamic therapy sounds to me like a really great way to go. So thank you for sharing that. And like I said, we'll be sharing your links far and wide, and hopefully our listeners will get a chance to connect with you as well. Thank you so much for being here today, and take care, Faust.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.